The time is 10:20 p.m., May 3rd, Texas. My name is Mickey, and I'm the producer of the Backyard Bullshit podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
This is your boy, Coolhand.
And today, unfortunately, our cousin Vinny couldn't join us because he took the phrase boats and hoes a little too literally, and now he's lost at sea with a bunch of gardening equipment. And then Dealer is currently in the middle of Mexico while he's fighting off two cartels at once. So we, both of them will be indisposed for the time being. But in the meantime, we have a new member of the Backyard Bullshit crew for you, and his name is Chip.
Hello. I am not wearing pants right now, so that is good.
Really the only way to record a podcast, so you're perfect.
Yeah, says the guy in a restaurant also, I'm assuming, not wearing pants.
Absolutely.
And a kid. Alright.
Yes, the cop.
I'm in a speedo, so we're good to go.
Alright, even better.
Well, that's how much it's raining here, so.
Yes, from what I've been hearing, Austin is quite underwater at the moment. And so, without any further ado, we're going to jump right into the show. Today we have a very football-centric episode for y'all. And while we're going to get into the off-season moves by several NFL teams, as well as the draft here in a little bit, first, we're going to talk about a tight end by the name of Gronkowski who retired recently. Chip, Coolhand, where do you think Gronk ranks among all-time tight ends?
Well, for me, I've got him third all time. I got Tony Gonzalez 1. I've got Antonio Gates 2, and then I got my boy Gronk.
So for me, I'm gonna have to put him. I think I might put him number 2. I think, like, in terms of peak, I'd probably put him number 1. Tony Gonzalez played, probably like twice as many games total as Gronk.
And that's part of the reason why I put him number 3 was just because of all the injuries that he had.
Yeah.
For being such a large, massive man, he probably only played about 60% of the games that he was eligible for.
Yeah, which is still crazy that he was able to be that productive when he was on the field, having the three back surgeries and the elbow surgery and the shoulder surgery and all that. But I think for me, I'm going to put him above Gates just because Gonzalez kind of changed the game. Gates sorted it in his own way, but Gronk, he was almost he was such a dominant blocker in comparison to the other two, and obviously what he could do with the ball in his hand.
Right, I mean, he was a truly unstoppable force. You couldn't even really double team him. When he was on the field, he was the best tight end. I'd even say he was probably better than Tony Gonzalez. Yeah. Tony Gonzalez kind of revolutionized the position of taking all these basketball players and making them tight ends. Right. That's kind of why I put him number 1. But, I mean, you can't argue with Gronk's production when they really needed him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
he's a lot of the reason why the latter half of Tom Brady's career has been so productive.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So what I'm hearing from the both of you is that both of you think that he's better than Shannon Sharp.
Yeah, I mean, granted, so Sharp was kind of, the start of, he was around, when I first started really watching football, so, I might not be able to really have appreciated him as much. But just Gronk, I don't know how many other, just completely single-handedly dominant tight ends there's really been in the game. He, outside of Brady, was the most important player on, 2 or 3 Super Bowl winning teams.
Absolutely. I think part of my thing is I just don't like Shannon Sharp as a person.
That'll do it.
Him doing his show with Skip Bayless doesn't help any. I think he's a little too into himself. Gronk was just free-loving and just like, hey, man, let's have a good time. Whereas Shannon Sharp's just like, no, but I'm the best. And I just don't think he is.
Yeah, that whole Skip Bayless thing kind of knocks him down one or two.
Now, let me ask you guys something. You guys did mention the kind of clashing personalities that Shannon Sharp and Rob Gronkowski have. Does a player's maybe post-career life or maybe off-the-field life and personality, does that affect how they are perceived in terms of the all-time rankings, or do you think it's kind of a minimalist sort of factor? Like, both of you cite Tony Gonzalez as the best tight end of all time, and I'm not too familiar with his post-career life, but it's from what I've been able to gather, he's pretty quiet, as opposed to Shannon Sharp and Rob Gronkowski, who are both very boisterous and loud in their own ways. So does their personalities kind of help or hurt their cases in all-time conversations?
Shouldn't affect it, but it does. The human mind thinks, that way. Whether you like an actual person for being a person will go in a long way of how you feel of them and their work. It's no different than real life. What we deal with on a day-to-day basis. With the other people that we work with.
Yeah, I mean, kind of sidetrack into baseball for a little bit. Curt Schilling was one of the most dominant pitchers, really, of like the 90s, early 2000s. But once it kind of came out, all of his kind of personal beliefs and all that stuff, some of the stuff that he tweeted, I feel like that's the only thing keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. If you go on a numbers basis, he should absolutely be in.
I 100% agree with that. He should be a Hall of Famer, and he's not because of his personal views on things.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll ever get in.
It'll definitely be an uphill battle.
Speaking of uphill battles, you guys are making it sound like Rob Gronkowski is going to get into the Hall of Fame no matter what. Is that fair?
Oh, he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. If it's not, it's a joke.
Yeah, for sure. He's, in terms of like Gale Sayers got in. He played for 6 years. I'm pretty sure he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I'd say Gronk was, almost every bit as dominant. That might be a little extreme, but he was easily the best tight end in football for 5-6 years.
Well, it's so different in football, but even Randy Moss wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is also a joke. There's no backlog right now with the way they do the NFL Hall of Fame voting. That is my only concern about him maybe getting in first ballot, but he'll get in for sure.
Yeah, something like with T.O., I sort of like the Curt Schilling thing. T.O.'s personality, I feel like, is the only reason he wasn't a first ballot. Where, you look at his numbers, he definitely should have been, but Gronk doesn't have that same, Gronk doesn't have that kind of negative stigma in the media. I don't see that keeping him out first ballot.
Now, since this podcast is based in Dallas, I do have to ask, you guys are making it sound like Gronkowski is better than the Cowboy favorite, Jason Witten. And while I'm certainly not going to make the statement that Witten is better, I'm just curious, what do y'all think separates Witten from Gronkowski, and what was it about Gronkowski's game where, like you guys said, Gronkowski was just so dominant on the field as opposed to Jason Witten, who's kind of been old reliable here for a few seasons? What do y'all think on that?
So for me personally, the biggest, Jason Witten's obviously great. He's going to be a Hall of Famer for sure. Just the biggest difference between them is, Gronk had wide receiver level athleticism, where Witten, especially in the latter part of his career, but Witten was never a burner. He was never able to just go straight up the seam a handful of times a game. He was more, run that little hitch route, run a little out route, catch it at 6, carry a couple people to 12, could catch it, something 40 yards down the field. I think honestly, like
I absolutely 100% agree with that. When you needed 3 yards, Jason Witten was your man because he could catch. To be honest with you, I think he's better at catching the ball when he's covered than Gronk was. But that part of that too was Gronk had Brady throwing to him, and while Tony Romo was a good quarterback, he wasn't Tom Brady.
Right.
And so plus Brady really only had Gronk consistently for the last 10 years, 9 years. I know Randy Moss was there for a year, but he just had, there was other wide receivers with the Cowboys, so there were other people to throw the ball to. But with the Patriots, those guys don't bring in skilled players to save their life. Running backs, none of that.
Right.
And so Gronk was really the only option, except when they had Austin Hernandez. But obviously that ended poorly.
Yeah, that wasn't great. But with the Patriots, they had all those the tiny little white slot receivers, basically running the same reps that Witten kind of, especially towards the end of his career, has been running. Where Gronk was more he was able to be the big play guy, which you just don't really see, outside of Alan Winslow that 1 year with the Browns, Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, you don't really see
the real vertical guys.
Yeah.
And you know what? Witten will get in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he'll be a first ballot. Just part of it, we talk about personalities. He was such a quiet guy. He really doesn't put himself out there. And, even working in the booth, which he was terrible at, which I think might actually hurt him, which it shouldn't, but it will. He'll get in, but it'll be second or third ballot.
Yeah.
Now, both of you brought up how Gronkowski and Jason Witten had Tom Brady and Tony Romo / Dak Prescott. I'm curious, do you think it is possible for a tight end to achieve a similar level of success that Witten and Gronkowski have had if the quarterback is not that great?
No.
For me, I don't. I know he's a wide receiver, but if you look at like Larry Fitzgerald, in that they had that little gap between Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer. Fitzgerald, it sort of seemed like he had kind of not completely fallen off, but come down from elite to just a very good receiver. Then they get Carson Palmer, and he's back to putting up huge numbers every year. So really, for Gronk can't throw the ball to himself. He needs somebody that can come and get it to him.
Absolutely. That's kind of what hurt Kellen Winslow's career with the Browns. Being a Browns fan, I followed it closely. Now, a lot of it he did to himself. Hey, I'm going to buy the most expensive motorcycle in the world and then blow out my knee. But when they were running through all those cavalcade of quarterbacks that they had back when he was drafted, he really stood no chance to be great. Before recently, the only decent Browns receiver was Josh Gordon for 1 year, 2 years. Other than that, it's been a bunch of, it's not all bad talent. Some of it is just you have to have someone who gets you the ball. And I think Gronk really benefited from that. I think he could have fit in a lot of systems. Bill Belichick is a mastermind, and he knows how to maximize Gronk's talent.
Yeah, so for me, I think somebody, like Jason Witten, like Gronk, even if they were playing with, Josh Rosen last year, they still would have put up, they'd still put up, decent numbers, but I'm not sure if we'd be talking about Gronk as a first, for sure, first ballot Hall of Famer if he didn't have a quarterback that was,
Like if he was playing for the Jets, do you think he's still a Hall of Famer?
I'm not sure. Lean towards yes, just because he was so physically dominant that, Mark Sanchez could throw the ball 5 yards off target and he's still going to, Gronk could still be able to just jump right through the safety and, save him. I don't think it'd be, for me, he's a for sure first ballot. I don't think he'd be for sure, but I'd lean towards yes.
Do you think you could have saved Mark Sanchez's job?
Oh God, no, there's nothing.
And so we will see when Gronk inevitably gets into the NFL Hall of Fame, and we will see who gets voted in alongside with them. And moving on with our show, we've spoken about all-time greats. Now we're talking about coulda, woulda, shoulda, with the Alliance of American Football shutting down operations, not even finishing their first season. I want to get what were y'all's initial reactions when you first heard the news when it first broke?
Well, for me, I was incredibly disappointed. I thought it was a good league to watch. It was better football after about the first week or two than I thought it was going to be. The NFL really needs a developmental league. I don't know how much you guys remember of NFL Europe, but that was good football to watch. And it allowed teams, Jake Delhomme was developed there, Kurt Warner developed there. It really allowed teams to send, especially quarterbacks, who they could just develop because you only got one quarterback in the NFL. Hopefully you only have one starting the whole year. And so these guys never get playing time and they can never develop. And you really never know what you have. The Browns signed Garrett Gilbert because he did so well in the AAF. But they never stood a chance. Unless the NFL directly backs it, even the XFL is going to fold within a year.
For sure. Yeah, it's sort of the same. I wasn't, I was disappointed. I've always been one of the kind of guys, I think I might be one of the 6 people on earth who enjoys watching, week 4 of the preseason.
I'm in that boat with you, buddy.
All right, so we got 2 of the 6 here. Yeah, it was always cool, seeing the, the undersized guy from, San Diego State, fighting to make a roster. That's basically all the AAF was. But at the same time, like he said, unless the NFL backs it, really don't see, or unless they just go like a completely bare bones operation where players basically volunteering to play. I just can't see.
They almost need to do what the MLS does and have the league pay the players, not the teams.
Yeah, I didn't know nothing about soccer, so I didn't know that was the thing. But yeah, that's definitely.
But they were also paying these guys too much. The contracts were $150,000 a year, and when you're trying to get up and going, you just can't have that unless it's being supplemented for something else. They should have got better TV contracts.
Yeah, it's like the WNBA. Their players are asking for, not quite NBA money, but they're wanting 7-figure salaries. But if you have 8 people watching and another 9 in the stands, to afford to pay the players in the AAF $150.
Yeah, it was a good attempt. Actually, it was a quality league. It was enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
And I think they also didn't advertise it well. I remember the very first game that I watched, I didn't even know it was on. I just happened to be flipping through the channels and saw it.
Yeah. For me, I actually only, the first week, I had heard about it, starting soon, and then I was clicking through ESPN, I think, and I saw the week 1 recap, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't even realize it had already started.
So, like I said, advertising would have been a lot better. There were some quality players in there, there were names that you recognize, but they just
Richardson he had a 3-touchdown game in it. So
we'll see if the XFL, who plays at Global Life Park in Dallas or Arlington, we'll see if if there's anything Vince McMahon knows how to do is promote. So he'll at least get that going. And so it's going to be a little less different than normal football, like when he tried last time. So we'll see if Vince McMahon can pull this off.
Not too hopeful about it, but hopefully he gets him out of the WWE. He's running that in the ground right now.
Yeah, he really needs to pass it along to his daughter.
Yeah.
So, with the AAF shut down, does this mean that Johnny Manziel's only hope is the XFL? Because they got banned from the CFL for, I think, drug use.
You know how hard it is to get kicked out of Canada?
I do not know how hard it is to get kicked out of Canada. Let's ask our resident Canadian.
It's very hard to get kicked out of Canada.
So Johnny Manziel is probably going to go to the XFL. What do you think Vince McMahon is going to do different this time around as opposed to his first attempt at the XFL?
He's going to make it real football, for one. I think, the novelty of the XFL really, the first time around, wore off pretty much after the first week. I think from the the WWE image as much as possible.
Yeah. He just tried to be too different last time.
So how similar do you guys think the XFL is going to be to the AAF? Like, I would imagine it wouldn't be too different rule-wise, because you saw some nasty hits in the AAF that would get a player ejected in today's NFL game.
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll be like that. They won't be as concerned with the ticky-tack sort of penalties that you see in the NFL. They won't have a Tom Brady level player that they're worried about protecting, so the quarterbacks will actually be able to be breathe, like you can breathe on them.
No red shirts.
Outside of that, I think it'll just be, they might try a couple weird things like the onside kick rule they had the AAF. Just signed it up.
I thought that was brilliant.
It was definitely unique. I liked it a lot. I can see changing up some of the the field goal and punting rules. Trying to make it something that would make it more of an exciting, dynamic thing. Outside of that, you can't change too much to the point where people are don't think it's really football anymore, though. Because that'll be
that's what happened to him last time. They're like, no, we're going to be different. But people love football. Don't change what people love. Maybe change some minor things to tweak it a little bit just to see if you can get some stuff. But don't, He's like, there was some stuff in the XFL I liked, but they would never do in the NFL. Like the sprint, get the ball for possession. Things like that.
I forgot about that.
I thought that was a pretty cool rule. No fair catches, I thought was okay, but they also gave him a 5-yard buffer. There were good theories in there. They just couldn't put it together. I like the players putting their nicknames on their jerseys. I thought that was fantastic. It really will, especially in today's society. I think that would be perfect for the NFL.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what the NFL needs is just an injection of personality.
Well, it's not called the No Fun League for no reason.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean honestly, if you look at how fast the NBA is coming up, the NBA still has a time, a while to go before it catches up to the NFL. But one of the things that makes the NBA so enjoyable to watch is you have, you can see the players kind of react. You can see them, having fun. It seems like they're almost trying to make it as stuffy as possible.
I mean, they find people for wearing socks the wrong length. I mean, like that, you got to get over that. Let the players have some personality. You know, this isn't the '80s or the '70s where, you know, it was all about straight laced and all this stuff. Let the players have personalities. You know, let Odell Beckham do what he wants. You know, other than being a nightmare. Like, stop trying to impose 1950s rules on these guys.
Yeah, for real.
So, let's get into that a little bit more specifically. If the two of you were in Roger Goodell's office right now, and you had the power to enforce whatever changes you want to the current NFL, what would they be off the top of your head? Chip, let's go with you first.
Honestly, I think one of the biggest ones is I would change something about the like punt and kick returns, because I swear it seems like every punt and kick return you get, you know, there's a flag thrown. Like as soon as somebody gets a 6-yard return, there's 3 penalties on the field for some sort of holding, blocking the bag, and it seems like it's almost every single one. Like, to me, there's no point of even trying to, you know, ball out. You know, I'm a Bears fan, so you know, watching Devin Hester, you know, have all these crazy returns, Dante Hall with the Chiefs, like plays in football, but now as soon as as soon as a big return happens, I'm not even excited anymore. I'm just looking for the flag. So I think that's one of the biggest things. So, like, maybe lighten up the holding calls on kicking punt returns, try to get those back in.
I actually really like that. That's good stuff because, I mean, it's basically eliminated some guys from the NFL. Josh Cruz basically lost his job because of all that. But probably the one thing I would change, I would take away all this quarterback stuff. You know, you can't touch the quarterback. I mean, they've almost made it where it's 2-hand touch for the quarterback now, just because, you know, they're trying to protect these guys, but it's still football. You know, you can't hit them high, you can't hit them low. Like, how are you supposed to hit these guys?
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, I was saying, last year I saw a couple penalties where, like, the left tackle would, you know, finish blocking the defensive end. Defensive end would, you know, be falling down and just so happen to run into the quarterback. It's 15 yards on him for.
Well, look what happened with the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I mean, that penalty on D4, that's one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not going to say it totally cost the Chiefs, but it definitely didn't help any.
Yeah. Well, Clay Matthews, what was it, 2-3 weeks in a row, he finished, like, all he did was finish the tackle, you know, how he's been taught since he was probably 5 years old.
Yeah.
Drive through.
I mean, one of them, he hit him in the middle, didn't fall on him, and they still gave him the 15 yards. I mean, I know these guys are big and they're fast and, you know, they can really hurt these guys, but guess what? It's football.
Yeah. Well, I forgot who it was. A defensive tackle for. Can't remember who he played for, but I think it was the week after Matthews had gotten 2 weeks in a row of that penalty. The defensive tackle, you know, hits the quarterback in the chest, tries to kind of roll off of him so he doesn't plant him in the ground, and ended up tearing his ACL on it.
It was a guy for the Lions. I can't remember his name, but I do remember that. It was, I mean, you know, if you're really going to make it like that, make it 2-hand touch for the quarterback, because it's ridiculous. You can't hit it at all, and it kind of, you know, people like big hits. It's part of the reason why people like NFL football.
Right.
People get lit up all the time, and quarterbacks should be able to get lit up.
Mm-hmm.
And it just isn't that way. Not anymore.
And that was actually, I was debating in my head when you had to be phone and say I sort of figured you were going to go the quarterback route. So that's why I went the kick and punt. That was a close second.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some other stuff like the AAF rule on onside. I'd like to see them do that because they they basically legislated out onside kicks in the NFL.
Right. Yeah. Having a equal number of players on each side. I mean, I get they got sued for all the concussion stuff, but at the same time, like kind of where a lot of the excitement comes in.
Well, I think it should have to be in their contract that they understand that this is a dangerous game,
Right.
and that bad things may happen to them. So they just, they got to figure out a way to not say put the violence back in the game, but allow the speed of the game to really maximize itself.
And well, so that's kind of another thing, like there's so much talk about making the game safer, and they have done that in a lot of ways, but it's sort of like Richard Sherman's talked about it a lot. They've made the game safer for the offensive players, where now the defenders are having to themselves in kind of compromised positions as they're trying to, catch somebody that's 220 pounds that runs a 4.4. Some quarterbacks having to put himself in an awkward position to not get a penalty.
Well, I mean, going back to that Lions guy who hurt himself trying not to hit the quarterback, like his career might be ruined now because he was trying not to get a penalty. And
yeah, exactly.
And there's got to be a way to figure out, okay, let's keep the speed of the game going, because that's really, I mean, these guys are so big and so strong and so fast. I mean, look at Saquon Barkley. You shouldn't be built like that.
No.
Human beings shouldn't be allowed to be built like that. Mm-hmm. But if you're a tiny corner out on the, you're going to have to die for his knees. And eventually, I guarantee you they're going to legislate that out of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of legislating out of the game, how about something that's being legislated into the game with the no-call reviews? The recently implemented rule that was largely called for after the NFC Championship game, where many fans believe that the Saints were robbed of a pass interference call that would have helped them win the game. What do y'all think of this new rule?
My only concern, I think it's a good thing. My only concern is I think it's going to slow the game down. And if there's anything we're learning from baseball, you can't slow games down. It's you don't want to lose people's attention. You know what happens when most review calls, people change the channel. They check on another game or they do something else. And I'm afraid that it's just going to make these games that are already 3.5 hours long up to 4 hours.
Yeah, I can see that possibly being an issue. I think as long as they kind of keep it in control, where you can't check every potentially bad call. It's going to be a good thing. I don't see it being used too often, because I think a coach will always want to have that one in his back pocket for like the fourth quarter. So all in all, it's definitely needed. You can't have something like that happen again.
And that's true. They got a rock.
Oh, yeah.
Pure and simple. That play cost them going to the championship game. Now, should they stop them on defense? Yeah. But if that gets called, that game's over. And it costs the Saints millions and millions and millions of dollars. Money controls everything in the NFL. And so when a team loses that kind of money, they have every right to be upset. Absolutely. And they needed to implement something for especially pass interference calls, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Even though they are extremely subjective, Canada's been doing this for years, and it works fine for them.
Yeah, I think like for things like pass interference, things like that, I think you can definitely do it. I think if it gets to the point where they're doing it for like holding penalties, along the line.
I am worried about holding, because there's holding on every play.
Yeah,
so.
definitely. So I think if it goes, that route, it might be a little too far. But outside of that, pass interference, sort of things like that. I could.
Do you think they should have? Do you think they should put a cap on the distance of a pass interference call, like they do in college?
I think the way pass interference is called in the NFL is fine. It kind of keeps players from okay, he's 30 yards down the field. I'll just tackle him right now.
I'll just foul the hell out of him, make sure he doesn't get a touchdown.
Yeah, I think it's worth it because it's an extra incentive to avoid messing up plays like that.
Right. Because the real exciting thing about football are the big explosive plays.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, which we'll talk about some other time, is personal issues. But he's so electric, and when he has the ball in his hands, I mean, you don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so.
So.
What do you think?
I'm just wondering if the Saints do get that call and they go to the Super Bowl. I'm just trying to figure out if they beat the Patriots or not, because I feel like that's a coin toss.
I think it would have been a better game than the game we ended up getting. Just because to me it seemed like Jared Goff, especially the first, really most of the game, just sort of was deer in the headlights. Sort of, Bill Belichick was just kind of fooling him on every other play.
And that would have never happened with Brees.
Yeah, Bill Belichick can slightly slow down Brees for most of a game, but eventually Brees is going to have those one or two possessions where he just picks them apart, even if it is a Belichick defense.
100% agree with that. I think it cost us a better game. Well, even at the D4 play in the Chiefs game, I mean, I would have rather seen the Chiefs and the Saints. I think that would have been an unbelievable game to watch for the Super Bowl instead of the garbage Super Bowl that we ended up getting.
Yes.
Do you guys think the Saints would have prevailed over the Patriots, or do you think it would have been like a highly defensive game like the one we ended up seeing with the Patriots and Rams?
I think Bill Belichick would have changed how he went about things. He really didn't open the book up for Brady, which was weird. I don't know if he just didn't trust the other guys that were around him, but I think it would have opened the game up a lot more. We would have seen like a 30-20 score instead of that garbage.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that too. I think one, if Belichick's looking across at Drew Brees, and if Brady's looking across at Brees, he's gonna, he's gonna be sort of the mindset like, oh, I have to score at least, like minimum 24 points to beat Brees, where Jared Goff, like, no, I need to score minimum, 2 touchdowns, and then I'm good.
Right.
Well, we will have to keep an eye out to see if this new rule change in fact has the impact that Saints fans want it to have. In the meantime, we are currently still in the NFL offseason, and some teams have been making some quite a few moves. I know there's one team in particular that Coolhand wants to talk about, but real quick, I just want y'all's opinions on what you think about the Dallas Cowboys signing Randall Cobb to a one-year deal, son of a bitch, and also signing defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence to that mega contract. What do y'all think about that?
For me, I think, I don't know, Randall Cobb, he'd done okay the last few years, and that's with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. He really only also had Devontae Adams. Nothing against Dak. I think he's a fine quarterback. I think I've heard some Cowboys fans that think hear Randall Cobb, they think of the Randall Cobb from years ago. I don't think he's that dynamic of a player anymore. He's fine. I think he'll be more or less what Cole Beasley was. A complete game changer, though. Marcus Lawrence move, I think, obviously it's a ton of money. It's something they had to do. You can't let somebody that dominant just kind of walk. It does scare me with how many surgeries he's gone through. Don't want him to have that kind of like career where it's just, he's great, and then 1 year he's above average, and then he's just kind of gone.
I don't think I've ever seen an issue where a guy waited to have surgery until he was signed to a long-term deal. I think DeMarcus Lawrence is a great player. You're right, the injuries definitely would concern me, but I think he'll be fine. I think now that he has his money, he'll work harder to stay healthy.
Yeah.
To try to play out that whole contract. He did get decent guaranteed money on it, but I think he wants to finish that contract and then probably retire.
Sorry, real quick. That's the thing about DeMarcus Lawrence, though, that makes me feel better about it. There's a lot of players in the NFL. They get that first big contract, and they just kind of quit. I don't see DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, DeMarcus Lawrence just kind of has that kind of bulldog mentality. It seems where he just he likes playing football. He's gonna keep I can see him kind of like quitting. Just sort of like taking it easy. I think he's going to be somebody that.
I also think he has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
When you think top defensive ends in the league, DeMarcus Lawrence isn't one of the guys that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. And so I think he wants to show that he is that good.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll see. David Irving's not next to him anymore. We'll see. But the Randall Cobb thing, I think it's a good fit for the Cowboys with, the guys they got on the outside are pretty darn good. Cooper's amazing. The Raiders are stupid. And and the other guy, drawing a blank on his name. The guy they took in the third.
Michael Gallup.
Michael Gallup. That's who it is, out of Colorado State.
Yeah.
He showed, when they brought in Cooper, he showed the flashes that he can be a solid number 2.
Yeah.
Which, if you got, 1 and a 2, and then you got Patrick Cobb basically in the slot, they'll be just fine in that area. I thought it was a good move for the Cowboys because they got him for fairly cheap.
It was like, what, 1 year, $5 million, I think?
Yeah, something like that, which is a pretty darn good deal for a guy who's probably going to get 50 catches and 700 yards.
Because I'm going to look it up real quick, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they definitely got him for less years. I know Beasley signed like a 3-year deal.
Oh,
yeah, Beasley.
Well, in Buffalo, have fun in Buffalo, Cole Beasley is all I got to say.
Yeah,
the weather is a lot different.
Yeah, Beasley 4 years, 29. I'm trying to find Cobb real quick. I want to say it was 1 year, 5.
Yeah, it is around that number. I know it was 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year, $5 million compared to 4 for 29.
But and to quote the great Brian Kinney, I know this is more of a baseball quote, but there's no such thing as a bad 1 year contract.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's even more true in the NFL because in the NFL injuries happen so often. You lose one step and you're basically gone.
Right.
So yeah, definitely like the Cobb contract more than the Beasley one.
I think Beasley would have been more productive.
Yeah.
This year than Cobb would be, but that was too much for Beasley.
Yeah.
And
I'm also surprised he went to Josh Allen, who struggles to hit anybody. Now he's going to be trying to hit a 5-7 target 4 or 5 times a game.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun to watch.
Exactly.
And speaking of fun things to watch, Coolhand. I hear your Cleveland Browns made a little bit of noise during the offseason. Is this true?
You could say that. It was the first time the Browns have had expectations since they came back in '99, which is awesome. I'm super pumped. I am still worried about their offensive tackles, and I do think they gave up a little bit more for Odell Beckham than I would have liked. However, I mean, this is a good team. Bringing in Odell Beckham is, I mean, it put the Browns back on the map in a positive way. You know, the Browns have literally been shit for 20 years. 30-ish starting quarterbacks, like, it's been a nightmare. It's been tough to be a Browns fan. You know, I catch a lot of crap. And now it's like, I don't catch crap anymore. People are actually like, y'all are going to be good. And it's just exciting. It's exciting to be part of, you know, a team with actual expectations. I hate Baker Mayfield with a passion, but he's done something for my Browns that nobody's been able to do the last 20 years. And that's bring excitement to that roster. And so we'll see what happens. You know, they still have to compete with the Pittsburghs and the Ravens, but you never know. But there's legitimate talent on that roster now. We'll just see if they can put it all together and Odell Beckham doesn't break up that locker.
Yeah, for me, I think so. Baker, yeah, he's definitely. I can definitely see why people would hate him, but I think he'll be good for a receiver like Odell. You know, one, because he's talented, but two, you know, they both kind of have that alpha personality where
their personalities mesh.
Could definitely see him. You know, they're gonna bump heads at some point, but
I think OBJ actually respects Baker Mayfield for his attitude towards the game. I think that's one thing he hated about Eli was just so lackadaisical that he just didn't respect him. But Baker said, "Nah, man, I'm going to be the greatest," and that attracts a guy like OBJ.
And then something else that I think will kind of help corral OBJ, you know, kind of keep him away from how he was with the Giants. They have Jarvis Landry on the team, you know, college teammate, and then also, you know, you saw I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks last year, but, you know, Jarvis Landry kind of came in, and along with Mayfield, he was one of the people who just kind of completely transformed the kind of the Browns locker room. He had that whole rant, you know.
The attitude. They changed the attitude of the Browns. You know, the Browns are kind of always, woe is me, what's going to happen next? Oh, my God, what first-round pick are we going to have? You know, what top 10 player do we want to get? And Jarvis Landry came in and said that was unacceptable. That this is not going to happen here. And once they finally got rid of Hugh Jackson, you saw the Browns turn it on. And they became a legitimately good team.
And then also with it, like just their skill sets match up really well. You have OBJ who can take a slant, he can take it 80 yards. You know, he can really stretch the field. Then you have Jarvis Landry, who's one of the best underneath receivers in the NFL. Then they have I can never say his name, but David Njoku.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have he's kind of that seam tight end. So they got some talent.
If they can just put it all together. Hopefully egos don't get in the way. That is the other thing about Jarvis Landry and OBJ. OBJ is such an alpha male, but he's used to playing with Jarvis and he respects him.
Right.
And so he's not going to be as mad if Jarvis gets all these extra catches.
Right.
That should be going to OBJ because they're friends. You know, they're used to playing with each other. It's like going back to LSU for them.
Yeah. Then they have Nick Chubb, who really came on at the end of last year. Then signed Kareem Hunt too, so it's pretty one-two punch in the backfield too.
Yeah, and defense is pretty good. Stealing Greedy Williams in the draft.
Yeah, it was big. Myles Garrett.
Schobert's actually been to the Pro Bowl the last 2 years. Their linebacker.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's talent all over the board there, but you know. But speaking of passionate Midwest teams, what do you think of what the Bears did in the off season?
I think they did. They did fine. I don't think they really had to do too much. But they're still a young team, so I don't I didn't really want them to just kind of go crazy and kind of like Washington Redskins it, where they just go out and just sign oh, that guy is a relatively good name. Let's give him way too much.
But Albert Haynesworth is going to be the next greatest player of all time.
Yeah, let's put him as a nose tackle instead of what he likes to do.
Yeah.
That's so dumb. They did the Dolphins did that with Sue too. I never understood that.
Yeah.
The Bears just kind of stay the course. You got Mack locked up. You have Trubisky for another couple of years before you have to sign him. I think David Montgomery fits a lot better in the system, in Nagy's system than Jordan Howard did. Cohen's dynamic.
Yeah, Cohen's a matchup nightmare. Absolute matchup nightmare.
For sure. Yeah, so I think, as long as Trubisky is able to take that next step and get a kicker, God. I think get Robbie Gold back. I think that's the only thing I really want them to do this offseason. Is just get Robbie Gold back, and then just after that, everything else they did was good enough.
I do actually want to talk about Robbie Gold. What does the kicker think he's doing, saying he wants a trade?
I think if Parkey hadn't doinked it, I think that would sound a lot more ridiculous. But I think Gold's looking at it as I have the entire city of Chicago is dying to have me back.
Yeah.
So I can kind of say whatever I want, and if the Niners end up cutting me or whatever, for saying it,
well, he's franchised, so they'd have to pay his entire $2.5 million to cut him. They'd have to trade him, at least get something back for him. But what's he worth? What's an experienced kicker worth in the league now?
I mean, it's worth a playoff win if you're the Bears.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair enough. A playoff win is worth millions of dollars, so.
Yeah.
So a 6th-round pick?
Oh yeah, I'd be fine with that. If it's something that could, one, just because Bears fans are gonna have they're gonna have so much anxiety going into the year if they just have random generated kicker.
Right. Steve Novak is back.
I think, a 6th-round pick, conditional 6th-round pick, something like that. I'd be fine giving that up. Just for the most part, aside from Brady, the obvious, the 6th-rounder you're going to get, he, if it's a good 6th-round pick, he'll be on your team for 2-3 years. So I'd much rather have a reliable kicker for it. So,
well, I'll put it to you this way: 98% of all quarterback wins by 6th-round players are by 2 guys. Tom Brady is one. Can you guess the other?
I have literally no idea.
He used to be a Seahawk for a long time before they got Russell Wilson.
Hasselbeck?
It was.
Huh. There we go.
It's seriously 98, 99% of all wins by 6th-round quarterbacks from those 2 guys.
And
so yeah, I agree with you. A 6th-round pick is basically worthless.
Well, we've covered the Browns, we've covered the Bears, and we've covered the boys. Before we move on to the draft, is there any other major off-season moves y'all want to give y'all's opinions on? Maybe Nick Foles going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Maybe Russell Wilson.
Jags count.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, you can't have Blake Bortles out there going, 5 for 26. But at the same time, Foles, I've seen how that went. He could turn it around. I mean, honestly, like, as long as he's average to slightly above average, I think the Jags kind of bounce back a year. As long as teams aren't able to put 12 guys in the box every time Fournette touches the ball.
Right. I mean, he is better than Bortles, but he has proven that he really can't start in the NFL. For whatever reason, he's amazing in the playoffs, but can't do anything in the regular season. Except for the one great year he had with Philly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, at the same time, I sort of get it, though. It'd be hard to draft a rookie quarterback and put that sort of team on a rookie's back.
Yeah.
Outside of Murray, I don't really see. Like, Haskins could be good, but
to be honest with you, I didn't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft other than Will Grier. And I think this is going to be – it's not going to be the Jamarcus Russell quarterback draft.
yeah.
But I just don't see this as a great quarterback draft. To be honest with you, I would have probably held off until next year.
Next year
to get my quarterback in the future.
Yeah, you got Herbert out of Oregon. You had Tua, obviously. Or hold out for 2 years and get just the next god.
Get Lawrence.
Oh god, he's so good. I hate it.
Oh yeah, good old Sunshine is a pretty darn good player.
It's insane. He's amazing. Outside of that, I don't have too many. The Russell Wilson contract would kind of scare me if I'm a Cowboys fan. 140 million, 107 guaranteed. Obviously Dak's not on that level. He probably wouldn't get that much, but Wilson at 35 a year, signing for at least 27, 28. So, that's going to be eating up a lot of your cap in a couple of years.
And that's my concern, that with these quarterbacks getting these outrageous amounts, they're going to have to do something about it, like in the CBA, because we all know the next time the CBA comes up, it's going to be a lockout flash strike. Like, it just depends on who you ask. If you ask an owner, no, we're locking them out. You ask the player, no, we're on strike. And because the salary cap, the way it's structured now, I mean, $35 million is like, what, 30% of the cap? And you just not going to be able to win that way.
Yeah. Well, because really anymore, like, unless you have, a Brady or you have, some sort of, like, transcendent quarterback, you have to win in the first 4 years, or else, you're going to be priced out of, keeping anybody else.
Well, Brady has the lowest annual salary of any quarterback that's not on their rookie deal.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, he signed a super team-friendly deal.
But he also has a wife who makes more money than he does.
Yeah.
And, and his off-the-field stuff is, way higher than what he makes in the league. I think that's what these guys need to start realizing is you'll make more money if you win.
Yeah.
Through advertising and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so stop taking all this money up front and trying to get it on the back end with winning Super Bowls and that kind of stuff.
So that's kind of another thing. I talked about it a little earlier. Basketball players have the NBA lets them show their personality. I think if the NFL kind of lightened up on, being so strict and stuffy with, so many of the, with their players, I think it'd be easier for NFL players to get, some more endorsements, and, then you might have people like Russell Wilson, instead of taking $35 million a year, 30, 32. Because I like,
and translate that the extra talent.
And one last offseason move to wrap up this segment. Coolhand, your very own Cliff Kingsbury going to the Arizona Cardinals.
So this is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. I love Cliff Kingsbury. He was the quarterback at Tech when I first got there. Okay, and he is a genius offensive mind. He really is. I mean, he made Johnny Manziel look like a world beater. I mean, and he has 6 guys that he coached in the league right now. 5 guys that he coached in college that are currently in the NFL. And he only coached for like 10 years. So it's what he can do with a quarterback is amazing. But he had a losing record at Tech. He was 35-40 with my Red Raiders. And he gets fired, and within a week joins USC as their offensive coordinator, and then goes and becomes the head coach of the Cardinals. What the heck is going on? I know the Cardinals are trying to get ahead with the new spread and all that stuff, but this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. Now, he doesn't have to coach the defense, and he doesn't have to recruit defenses, which is what hurts Tech, is they can't recruit defense to save their life. But I think they would have been better off if they'd gotten Nick Bosa, kept Rosen. That way they could have built something instead of, kind of just circling and going around in circles.
Yeah, so when I first saw it, I didn't like it. I sort of ended up liking it, but that's mainly because I'm a Texas fan, and Brew McCoy ended up decommitting from USC and ended up signing with Texas, so...
Because Cliff Kingsbury left.
Yes, I mean, honestly, like, that's... I'm loving the move for that reason. I think Brew McCoy is going to be a pretty great player for the next 3 years. Outside of that, I think for the Cardinals, they'll put some points on the board, they'll give up more points, they'll fire him in 3 years, and they'll be back to making some other terrible coaching decision in 3 years. So,
Right. I love me some Cliff. He introduced me to the air raid, and which it's great. But it was my biggest thing about when he was at Tech was he got hired when he was too young and too inexperienced, and this is even more so.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but we'll see the Cardinals back in the top 5 next year for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And we will monitor what Cliff Kingsbury's first year as an NFL coach will entail. But for now, it's our last segment of the podcast where we alluded to it earlier, and we previously talked about how it wasn't really the best draft for quarterbacks, the NFL draft. Now, I feel like, do we just want to get our hatred and making fun of the Oakland Raiders now, or do we save that to the end?
I'm sure it'll mingle this stuff through our talk here.
So, Kyler Murray, number 1 in the draft. Well, let's just start there. What do y'all think?
So for me, I feel like there's going to be no in between with him. I'm sort of leaning towards him. I think he'll be good as long as he can stay healthy. He has a cannon. He's pretty accurate.
Oh yeah, it's not the short that bothers me. It's the slight. I know that he came in at like 205, 210, whatever, but these guys are really, really big and really, really fast. I mean, you're gonna have linebackers who are 70 pounds heavier than him. That's maybe like 50 pounds heavier than him, who can chase him down.
Right.
And we'll just see. It was my concern with Johnny Manziel that he's just too small. And these are real-sized men in the NFL.
Yeah.
And when you get an Ndamukong Suh who falls on you, what's going to happen?
Right. I think he's a better passer. He's definitely more athletic than Manziel was. So I don't think he'll be Manziel in the NFL. But yeah, it definitely wouldn't surprise me if in 3-4 years, we're kind of looking at like an RG3 thing. Like, oh, he came back. His athleticism was kind of sad.
The one good thing Kyler has for him is that if this NFL thing falls through, he can always go play baseball.
Right.
So that option's gonna give him the opportunity to go out there and see what you can do.
Yeah.
Leave it all on the line. And if you can't hack it, you can't hack it. But it will allow him to give everything to the game. You won't have to hold anything back, worrying about another contract or anything like that.
Now, we could go pick by pick of the first round and just give our own little opinions on that, but for the sake of time, how about we each just give our most, maybe a surprise pick. We're like, oh man, I did not see that team picking this person, or maybe a steal pick where you're like, oh, you know what, that's really gonna pay off for them in the long run. Or maybe there's a pick where you're just like, wow, what in the utter fuck were you thinking? Thanks for giving me something to talk and make jokes about. Coolhand, let's go to you first.
I thought this draft mostly kind of thought where I was going to go, except for a couple of picks. But I really think the Eagles moving up and getting Thomas Dillard in front of the Texans was a huge move for them. I thought that was brilliant by them. It's really going to solidify their line because you got to keep Carson Wentz healthy. You have to. There's no Nick Foles there to come in and be the rainmaker. So they're going to have to keep Carson Wentz upright. So getting arguably the best tackle in the draft at 22, I thought was a tremendous deal for them. Because the Texans would have for sure taken him with the 23rd pick. And then for bust, I'm not going to say bust, but maybe my surprise would be the Raiders taking Cleveland Farrell so early. They probably figured out him later. But I feel like John Gruden and Mike Mayock is like, no, we're going to do what we want to do, and we're not going to let anybody else tell us what to do. And I think that might be a bad attitude. Because they could have traded down or waited till 24 and probably got Cleveland Farrell and got something else to help their offense at that fourth pick, or even get like an Ed Oliver or Josh Allen or something. Someone to, a true impact player at that pick and picked up Cleveland Farrell later.
That pick sort of reminded me, I forgot when it was, but when the Chiefs had the 3rd overall pick, they drafted Tyson Jackson, mainly because they needed a 5 technique. And, he ended up having a decently long career. He was fine, but when you're picking 3 or you're picking 4, you don't exactly want fine. You want, a dynamic game change, like somebody changer. I just don't see Farrell being that.
Definitely. How about yours? What do you got?
So steals, Josh Allen at 7, Ed Oliver at 9. If they would have went 3 or 4, that wouldn't have surprised me at all. You talked about Greedy Williams in the 2nd. I really like that pick, especially the corner that the Browns picked at 4 when they got Garrett. Drawing a blank on his name, but yeah, that can make a nice little tandem out there if Greedy pans out, which I think he will. One of the picks that really, so the position, where he went, I don't think it was bad, but Rashawn Gary from Michigan, when he went to Green Bay, and when they announced him as a linebacker.
Yeah, that was weird to me. He's a little too big for me to be a linebacker, but
that threw me out. So I know he's not, he doesn't cross the 300-pound threshold. He's he is crazy athletic, but at the same time, he was basically a defensive tackle all 3 years at Michigan. Defensive tackle, defensive end, playing at 285, like 280, 285. Them announcing him as a linebacker, that really threw me off. And if they keep him there, I can see that one being a bust. I hated the Daniel Jones pick.
Oh, that was awful. That's one of the worst things. I was actually at the Dallas Cowboys VIP draft party, and when that came off, people actually started cheering because they were like, "Oh, the Giants are stupid."
Yeah, I mean, he was somebody who, he has the measurables. He has the arm. That one I can't see panning out. The Farrell pick, I don't think any first-round picks were really egregious. I do think panicked really jumped him. I think they kind of panicked.
Like they say he's going to be the next Dwayne Brown, but it's going to take 2 to 3 years. It felt like as soon as the Eagles traded up, they freaked out and they didn't know what to do.
For sure.
Like, we have to take a tackle. We have to take one now. What are we going to do?
I didn't really like that pick too much. The Raiders' second first-round pick, Alabama, Josh Jacobs. That one just sort of seems like so last year the Seahawks drafted Rashard Penny in the first round. Like, I don't know, unless it's somebody who is just a completely dynamic sort of player or some sort of running back. I don't love drafting a running back in the first. I feel like they could have filled out their roster a lot better outside of that.
Yeah, I don't know why you waste a early round pick on a running back anymore. I know Saquon and Zeke have been amazing, but why tie up so much money in a running back when there's other positions in need, and they really only last 5 or 6 years anymore?
It is an interesting dynamic how the longevity of running backs has diminished over the years to the point where their draft stock has just dropped dramatically.
Yeah, I don't, especially since you get with the first round pick, you get the fifth year option. So many running backs, burn out after 3-4 years. Like you've been talking early, like the Rams don't really know what's going to happen with him right now. He's got that knee issue acting up. Nobody really knows what's going on. But for somebody as dynamic as Gurley, I would take that chance. But Josh Jacobs, he might be an above-average running back. I just don't see him as somebody who game changer. So I'd rather, not being able to get him in the second round, but drafting, somebody like, Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
Sweat, however you say his last name. But, the Raiders are still looking for a pass rusher. I would have much rather taken him, just a guy at running back.
Right. The Raiders draft really felt like, no, we're just going to, this is what we want, and this is how we're going to do it, and we're not going to let anybody else tell us what we're doing. Because, the Raiders kicked all of their scouts out. All of them. They weren't even allowed to be there.
That's kind of sad for the Raiders.
I want to feel bad for them, though, but all they do is dig holes for themselves. At least they found a place to play this year.
That is true. So, Coolhand, what would you say is the most interesting pick of the draft? The Cowboys didn't have a first-round pick, but they did have a second-round pick, and they spent it mostly on their lines. What do you think about that?
I don't feel like they addressed what they really needed to address, which was the safety. They did take one in the 6th round, but as we talked about earlier, it's a 6th round pick. You just assume that's not going to work out for you. I mean, they got some talent in. They filled some hold. I like that Tony Pollard kid. He's kind of a switchblade guy. You can kind of do with him whatever you want, but not having a first-round pick, they did about as good as they could without a first-round pick. Because that first-round pick turned out to be Amari Cooper. He was worth every bit of that first-round pick that they got.
Okay.
100%. Now, before we sign off for the night, do y'all have any last, maybe closing statements on the draft, or maybe a specific team you want to keep an eye on? Maybe because you genuinely want to see what happens, or maybe because you just need something to make fun of at the end of the day. What are y'all's closing thoughts on this year's draft? Chip, let's go to you first.
So for me, obviously, if you're looking for a team to make fun of, you got the Raiders and the Giants, but at this point, it's just kind of piling on. So I didn't love their first round pick. Tillery out of Notre Dame for the Chargers. But it seems like the Chargers are always like right there, just sort of like the rest of their draft outside of their first round pick. Their first round pick was fine. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it either. But outside of that, I think they kind of, they really rounded out their team.
Adderley?
He was somebody I thought the Cowboys might be looking at with that second pick. I think he could make a nice tandem with Derwin James. Honestly, that's just one of the teams I kind of want to see. They came on so strong at the end of last year. That's one team I'm really kind of interested to see what they're going to do. Obviously, the Bears, being a Bears fan, see how they bounce back from that ridiculous double bounce, double billing. Those are my two teams I'm probably going to be looking at the most outside of being DFW. They're going to have Cowboys jammed down my throat all year. But yeah, Chargers and Bears are mine too.
For me, I'm probably going to go definitely the Browns, obviously. So down in the Austin area, we catch a lot of Texans here as well, so I'm sure I'll be watching that because I have a bet with a friend of mine. But the team that I really want to see, I thought they had an unbelievable draft, was the Dolphins. They traded nothing to get Josh Rosen. Nothing. And I thought they had an unbelievable draft. Their offseason wasn't all that great, their free agent signings, but Rosen's way better than Tannehill. And it's just, I just want to see what happens with all that.
And for me, well, I obviously got to pay attention to the Cowboys, regardless of whether or not I like it or not. You do make a great point about the Dolphins and how their season goes with their draft picks. I'm interested in how the 49ers seasons goes with their defensive end picked. So we'll certainly see how that goes. And
the entire defensive front is first-round picks.
Yeah,
Jimmy G coming back.
That's definitely going to be a lot of raw talent there. And for the meantime, that will be it for us on the Backyard Bullshit Podcast. My name is Mickey. Thank you for joining us this evening.
I'm Coolhand, signing off.
And I'm Chip. Thanks for having me, guys. I'll gladly be back if you ever need a fill in again.
Yes, Chip, thank you for joining us today, and
thank you for coming on with us. You were fantastic.
Indeed you were. We appreciate it greatly. And for you listeners at home, thank you for listening to us tonight, and take care.